Right, I think we're going to start. It's sort of, I've got two different 9 o'clocks. And it's obviously 9 o'clock here in New Zealand, which is nice and early on Thursday morning. And I am super, super excited. Today we are having Bobbi Starling from Pasco. And maybe just to quickly start off, I met Bobbi, it's been quite a couple of years, but I think the most amazing story for me is we went to visit Bobbi's district, Pasco County Schools. And we arrived, it was sort of Bruce and me and Olivia, and we saw these 15 teachers, all with their Kais Clan classroom packs, walking in. And it gave us goosebumps. It was just so amazing, the excitement in the room. And we spent the day with them into training and trying different things and show them, you know, some tricks and how we can find things. And I will never forget that day. It was really so special. And that was all made possible by Bobbi. So Bobbi, welcome. And I would love for you to share a bit sort of, you know, where do you come from? And yeah, a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be able to share today. And I also won't forget that day. It was super exciting. So I am a senior supervisor and I oversee computer science K-12 for Pasco County Schools. That's our district. We have about 90,000 students. And I've been really passionate about bringing computer science to all of our grade levels. So we have computer science classes in all of our middle and high schools. And then just over half of our elementary schools have a dedicated computer science teacher and the resources and curriculum, and that's growing and expanding. So I have taught elementary school, middle school science, and 1 year at high school for a while. I was a magnet programs coordinator for our magnet schools over STEM prior to advocating to bring a dedicated position to computer science for our district, which is what I'm doing now.
Well, I could probably add, I met with a teacher last week from Palm Beach, and she goes, oh, I hear Pasco is using the product. I'm like, yeah. I said, we're doing a webinar with Bobbi. She goes, oh, I want to be the next Bobbi. That's how we want to grow our district. So, you know, I think it really kudos to you and your team of, you know, just getting out there and spreading the word of STEM and coding. You know, it is not just about, you know, every day in the classroom. You teachers have an amazing job to really get to our students and empower those students and getting them ready for the workplace. And I think hopefully with STEM, that is one step that we're going to do. But before we start sort of the whole thing, I'm going to just do a little video, do a couple of slides. We're really going to try and keep it short because we want to talk about this multidimensional. You know, how do we get to cross-curricular? How does the curriculum actually fit in? And we're going to hear from Bobbi. And I've also got some people that's on the call that I'm going to sort of talk to and see what do they do there, you know, what standards and how does it fit in with them. So just going to share.
Welcome to Computational. Get your Kaibots ready. The tournament is about to begin, so grab your Kaibot with code, make sure it's locked in. Do a test run, gather your strength. Move the code block and create the outside. The walls are rising. Start your Kaibots. Ready, set, go.
Ronel, we can't see it.
Okay. Now I just want to double check here that is going. So that was just a little bit of a music thing that, you know, we like to play. And sorry, I know you didn't get the images, but we will be sharing the slides and things with you as well. So Kai's Clan, you know, so just a quick one is obviously for grade 5 to 10. And it's about collaboration, and we're going to talk about that. It's about real world STEM experiences and adventures. And then I think, it's that sensor, the data integration that gets really excited of what we use when we look at Kai's Clan, which a lot of people always say, oh, Kai's Clan, those are those little AR, VR robots. And that's very true. So you obviously, if you've got a MetaQuest, you can put your MetaQuest on and you can actually code your robot with the MetaQuest. And that's where the collaboration come in, which I think is super, super exciting. So, a lot of robots out there is one-on-one, but with Kai's Clan, we really wanted to create that collaborative process for students to work on and see what's happening. So before I go back to Bobbi, we talk about why move beyond one-dimensional code. How do we have that engagement with the students? How do we decrease it? Because students is multitasking, even more than, you always say women. Well, women can multitask, but students can do it even more. I take my kid, it's on a phone, it's on a computer, it's on Discord, it's on Facebook, it is just multitasking everywhere. So we have to deliver that in our learning when we teach students as well. So it's not just about, drop and drag or, solve this little puzzle. It is really engaging them in very, very different things. So this is where that cross-curricular comes in super, like how do we do that? So Bobbi, when you started looking at product, why, what did you look at and what was the different elements that was playing that you wanted to do?
So some things that I loved about Kai's Clan that I knew that was something that I definitely wanted to get was I love the idea of students being able to collaborate together. So working as a team with different jobs on the same mission, that was pretty neat. And not just the partner coding that you can get from some of the other products, but actually like a whole team working together. And then I also love how you could add all of the external parts or bits, I guess, as you call them, right? So adding in some extra sensors in addition to the onboard sensors and then getting all that data collection and the logging so they can see the real-time data. They really can actually see how ecosystems work. And then the creative part. So the whole design thinking with being able to create 3D prints that they can use for markers and creating their own virtual worlds. I really just think that it is enticing and engaging for kids that have all different interests and then all different really levels of ability from just beginning with just the basic or the novice kind of blocks and then getting into the expert and then from block coding into Python. So it just really had everything to offer for, I think, every student would somehow engage with it and really enjoy it.
So when you looked at it, did you come from a computer science point of view, or did you look at, hey, how is this going to fit into science? Obviously, you in Florida,
Yes.
which way in the curriculum did you sort of see this work?
So definitely I came first with the computer science lens, since that's the content that I'm overseeing. But of course, anytime that you can have more than one content area hit or multiple standards covered, then that's definitely a plus, especially if we have a few of those schools that have computer science embedded into some of the other curriculum and they don't have those dedicated computer science times. Kai's Plan does that as well. So there really is something from an ELA lens, that English language arts with storytelling and all of the scripting. Obviously, tons of math and science with the coordinate grids. I think I mentioned earlier about the ecosystems and planetary systems. And then with the conditionals for computer science, it really just, it could fit anywhere across the curriculum and then multiple grades. So we started with Kai's Clan for our middle schools and some of our high school programs. And we're going to be expanding now and adding the KaiBot into elementary because our teachers just love it so much. So we're excited about that.
So that's really interesting. So, you chose that for middle school. And I think that was, that's a really wise thing, because we have a lot of schools or teachers coming to say, okay, well, we really like Kai's Clan. That's where we want to start. And they purchase the Kai's Clan, and then they go, oh, this is a little bit more complex than what we thought. So, and I think that's exactly sort of where you came from, is, what was the feeling of your teachers the first time they sort of got Kai's Clan? Were they a little bit, whoa, this is a little bit overwhelming, but they could see that scaffold, that, that expansion?
Yes, they definitely at first, because there's so much to it. And I think that it might have been a little bit intimidating at first for them, but I did get a few of my teacher leaders to agree to try something out, and then to come with like a lesson idea that they could share and go over. So from beginning with just, writing it out in pseudocode, and getting the robots moving, not necessarily on the mat right away, but just seeing how they work, how they can code them forward, use the grippers, some of those things. And they realized that it was really engaging and really fun. And then, of course, and they just wanted to learn more and more and more. And so actually one of the things that I'm currently working on with one of our teachers is we're trying to design a Quidditch game using Kai's Clan. So an AR and VR mat rearranged to the Quidditch pitch, so we can have the magic of coding, computer science, and storytelling all together. And so we're designing some different markers and 3D printing quaffles, and the snitch and the bludgers for the positions, and the team logos. So the kids are really excited about that too.
And I love that. Obviously, we've got the different mats. We've got the Mars mat, so you can be really creative there on Mars, what you do. We've got the warehouse mat. So I actually think if I switch over, I should be able to, maybe not, just have a look here. Yeah, you should be able to see my mat here on the left-hand side. So these are little Kai's, the robots, the MetaQuest, and I think these are all the little 3D printer markers that you were talking about. So you can go and print these out, and you get the QR codes, and then these can become your balls, your sticks, or actually on the warehouse, it's your packages that you have to move around and things. But it gives you so much that you can actually go and create. And I think that's the beauty of it. We brought out the water cycle mat. So actually it's just by moving pipes that's got QR codes on that you can actually see how does it work. So you would have your type in your zip code, and then that will tell you in what area you're. So if you in a really wet, lots of rain like New Zealand, you wouldn't have to do a lot of storage of water. And then you have to make sure that the water comes out the lake and it goes into the treatment plant, it goes to the house, to the farms, to the sewage treatment plant and back to the lake. So you have to keep that moving, and then we do that gamification. And each of our mats, we really try and do a little bit more fun. But what I want to share with you as well, let me just try and get this right. Whoops. I've sort of just got a quick mat here, and I'm not going to go and do coding and do all of that, because I actually wanted to show a lot of people actually don't know this. But so you do your blocks. This is your, it's just your block there that you can drag out. Obviously, you can do everything in Python as well, and you can add the sensors, and you can see all your sensor data here. But you also have this virtual world. So students can go into Minecraft or Tinkercad and design their own characters. Here you can see there's a control station for one of the Mars bases. And then when I open my virtual viewer, this is where you now can see your 3D world. And this one is going to come up with a traditional old Amazon warehouse where you can take your your forklift, and you can go and move it and go and pick up packages and everything. Just mute this. So here you can see there's my robots now, which is now turned into trucks. And this truck is very nicely all, and I can go around. There's my little block. Remember, we were talking about this little block, which I can move around. But what I can do as well is there's this little hamburger menu, and you can actually go to themes. And I don't know if anybody has tried this. So there's actually a KaiBot factory. So you know the other product is KaiBots, and you have to move around and actually go and build KaiBots. So you've got this whole, the conveyor belt. So the conveyor belt pops out different blocks here, and you have to put them together, move your boxes around. So there's blue bits, red bits, green bits, and you'll see like these dobots kick into action. And then once you've got your KaiBot all ready, it comes out here and the drone takes it off. And it's a really cool gamified way, but you can do this VR, and it's collaboration. So one robot, one group can be doing this number 1 and 2. The others can be doing number 3, number 5. So there's lots of different things that you can actually do, and that is all under themes. And if I add more layers, I can add my mats. You can actually see there's my mat of the warehouse sitting underneath. And that can all be in AR and VR. But that's sort of what I wanted to. Obviously, Python, that whole big thing for that middle school when we need to start bringing in Python. So we were just gonna, you can jump backwards and forwards and then add Python here, and you'll see what you're doing in the background as well. But today is not really, I'm not trying to do a lesson on Kai's Clan today. I think one of the things, when you look at a dashboard, it's like, oh, I need to learn a new dashboard. We really do try and give you all the help here getting started with Kai's Clan, what you need. Some of the IT departments, you need to get some whitelist, the Kai networks, it's all on here. And your first time setup, hopefully that's going to help. That's a new feature that we've brought in. But we were talking about that lesson plan, the factory simulation. So here is that lesson plan for the KaiBot, and it will walk you through exactly what you need to do. Now you'll say, oh, where did this come from? We haven't seen this before. So we have actually just launched our learn.kaisclan.com. This is our teacher portal, and you'll be able to find your lessons. So you can go onto a product, decide which mat you've got, which subject matter, level of difficulty, and it will bring up, and we are still adding search words. So, I know, Bobbi, you've added me some search words, and we've added that in as well. So hopefully this is going to give you some courses and some lessons for the 3 different products that we've got. So hopefully that's going to be helpful. And again, we talk about maths. It is so important teaching students X, Y coordinates, and there's that whole lesson around it. And if you are very brave, this is a challenge to some middle school. There's a lesson called sine wave. If anybody can actually do this, I reckon there is a Starbucks card in the post on the way to you. I would love to see this being done. This was actually done by a Russian teacher that he used in his classroom. And it was a little bit more tricky. But it teaches sine waves. But let's get back to, just stop sharing my screen here. And the next thing oops, sorry, just want to try and come back to my screen. There we go. Multiple. So when we were doing that scaffold of the journey, something that we came across, and you mentioned it earlier, was that pseudocode. So Bobbi, can you talk a little bit? I know last time, our previous webinar, we really had a bit of a struggle with sound, but I thought it was really interesting in how you started that process. So can you maybe talk a little bit more about sort of how you've gone and through the journey of when they do those lesson plans, when they design them?
Sure. So, pseudocode is really just the directions in English, whether that, and it can be pictures, symbols, words, whatever they want that they want. Um, it's kind of the goal. So the steps that they would take to achieve that goal at the end are problem solve. So basically they have that kind of big problem that's there, and then they're going to decompose it, and they just write down the kind of the steps in chunks quickly. So then they can use that to plan their code. What's really important, I think, about the pseudocode too, is that when they are coding, and then they actually kind of look at their code, if there's a mistake in the code, if they go back to the pseudocode, I think it really helps with the debugging process, so they can see where they went wrong, whether it was that they forgot a step, maybe they turned the wrong way, whatever it is there. But I think by writing that down and decomposing those big problems into small chunks and then writing out that pseudocode, that when it comes time to actually code, it's a lot easier for the teachers that don't have any experience. And then they're engaging in that learning process just like the students do first. So they might kind of see where misconceptions or difficulties might come up for the students when they're doing their own pseudocode activities and lessons.
And I think one of the fun things that we learned is obviously is metrics. So everything is sort of in centimeters. And I remember the teachers all had to get out like, okay, so we have to convert this inches, centimeters. You know, that's a really, really cool thing because, I mean, science is, the metric system is really centimeters. And for us always when we come over from New Zealand, we see the gas price and we're like, oh, it's so cheap. And then you sort of start converting. Well, it's still cheaper, it's much cheaper, the gas. But, then you have gallons and liters and things like that. So I think, it is that converting and just learning. And I remember we were just coding the robots on the floor. We just put tape down and we sort of had to do that maze. And then once they've done that, then we move it onto the mat. They started, looking at what that XY coordinate is, and also that compound. I sort of think about this compound interest. I remember we had a long line, and it doesn't 100% stay straight. It actually moves off, and then when it had to go around the corner, it was a little bit, off. So we had to recode that. So have your teachers or your students, are they starting to look at text-based coding?
Say that one more time.
The teachers, are you guys into Python yet? Have you started dabbing some toes in?
Yes, some of them have. Some of actually the students have started before the teachers. That's probably not surprising. But some of them have done that, and they really are. They are really into the switching back and forth. So it's really great that they can switch back and forth with that code, because they try it first, and then if it doesn't work, then they'll switch back over to the blocks and put it in blocks, and then they can see what it would look like in Python. So the students are really are teaching themselves there. But there are more and more teachers that are adding challenges for the students to add that Python in there.
No, I mean, that's good. And that's why sort of even in our lesson plans, we sort of give the Blockly, and then we actually say, try it in Python as well. And hopefully with KaiBot, that's going to make it actually easier, because with KaiBot, you also very early on get into that text-based coding. So the aim would be, if we sort of fast forward in a couple of years, I would like to see students come out of KaiBot and actually go straight into Python, and maybe even bypassing a bit of that Blockly or that Scratch, because I think we do need to get the kids quicker ready for text-based coding. So if they are going to become a programmer, or even website, just to be able to understand what's happening. Okay, so I'm going to jump just back to. So we talked about the scaffold of our journey, and then looking at those really cross-curricular missions. So obviously, like I said, you can have Mars, you can have the warehouse, and bringing the science in, bringing that art and design in. I absolutely love the fact that we can actually create these little mini ecosystems. You can play chess on it. And, you know, like what you are saying, you're busy designing a whole new game. I mean, we can take this to the sports field as well, which is really, really cool. So the buy-in from the students, you know, I think you mentioned it early on, is that immersive storytelling. And I really think with Kai, you can actually bring in that storytelling, and it's about that collaboration, you know. So one person may be that pseudocode author and writing it down, and the one can actually be the physical, the blockly Python coder. One can be that design pro in the team, and then one can be the VR navigator. So can you talk to us, what did you find is the best? How many students per robot? Because we always get asked that question. What is the ideal way? You get a classroom packed with 12 robots and 2 mats. What do you find is the most ideal?
So I think honestly, I think that depends on the mission, but I think as long as the students have assigned roles and they have like a job and a task, so that they all have something that they're doing, and of course the age of the students too. But I think that it is nice to have no more than 3 students to a robot if possible. They work collaboratively, and then it's also, I think, important to switch roles. So if somebody was the pseudocoder or the author, that the next day they might be the programmer or coder, so that everybody gets an opportunity to do all of the things. So switching those roles within their teams, and then changing teams as well, so that the kids get an opportunity to collaborate with different groups of people.
I had a teacher, and I just thought, she emailed me and she said, this is really difficult. I'm like, okay. I said, well, we can do the training. So I said, so what are you trying to do? And she goes, okay, so what I've done is I've actually gone and I have set up my Mars mat and my warehouse mat and my smart city mat and my rescue run mat. I've broken the kids up into groups and they are doing these lessons. I'm like, how is that going? She goes, it's impossible. So we then gone back and said, okay, if you're going to do multiple, maybe just try and do 2 different mats. So that's maybe a little tip. Don't try and do, we've got, 5 mats. But maybe what you do is, we also have the giant size, the super size mats as well, where you can actually put all 12 robots on them. And I think that is working quite well. But if you want the smaller groups, don't make your life much harder. Just stick to 1 or 2 and set it up separately and then let the students go. But yeah, she was like, when I told her, most schools just use 1 mat and then they move on to the next one, there was sort of that sigh of relief that you're like, oh, I thought I had to do both. I'm like, no. So what is your favorite mat so far?
I think I like the Mars mat. I like that one. I think it's interesting and super relevant with all of the things that are in the news with trying to colonize Mars and trying to get back to the moon and all the things that are happening. The kids really seem to love that one as well. And there's lots of creativity and imagination when they're picking what they're kind of designing for their worlds and what that might look like. So I think the Mars mat, but I've actually enjoyed all of the mats that I've tried and played with. So it's really hard to pick a favorite. And I got my teachers, they have the small size mats and then the large mats for a couple of them. So even though they might have 2 mats down that they're working on, it's for the same mat. So they might have different groups both working on Mars mats.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important. And talking about storytelling, we're running our space race competition at the moment, which is on until the end of the year. So if anybody still want to, participate, you can win $1,000 US. But I remember one of the stories previously, actually one of the winning schools. So what they did, they have to write the story, then they have to code their robot, they have to film it, do voiceover, and it's a project. It's a great project. But the storytelling was it was on Mars, and they had the astronauts landed, and they brought the food, and they started putting it out on the mat, and then the sun went down, and that went down with a light sensor that they used. And then when it went dark, the video went dark. And then when it came back on, all my astronauts were aliens. It was so funny. And the aliens came and stole the food and then took it away. And then the sun went down and it was the end of Earth. Just such great storytelling that you can actually do with it as well, which is what I love. Okay, let's just go and, sorry, I'm doing multitasking. Okay, so we are going to cross over to some of the people that are our attendees, because I've got some questions how they use it in their curriculum. And we're going to talk to Bobbi how, in the Florida standards, where does it best fit in. But there's just a couple of the new teacher portal. So definitely go and give it a go. It's sort of 95% there. Any feedback, please. We would really appreciate it. But the big thing for us is that scaffold of learning. So yes, it's in middle school, but you can actually take grade 5 to grade 10 all the way. And how do we measure our ROI? So if I'm going to ask Bobbi, how do you think? Is this an investment that's been worth it, or is it going to be another robot that's going to be said? Let's put it here on the spot here, but is my robot's going to gather dust on the cupboard, or do you think you've had some ROI?
Definitely some ROI, and I think that we might have some holes worn through the mats. That's what the kids, if you ask them what they want to do, they want to get out the Kai's Clan, and I think it is because it is so engaging and there's so many different parts and pieces of it. It's really multidimensional, so they definitely love that. We have some digital tools also that the students take, which are state level kind of assessments that kids can earn the certification for, industry certifications or digital tool certifications, and then monies go back to the school to grow their programs. So they're hoping to use some of those funds when they generate those to expand, to have more mats and different things going on. So there's a Python one that some of our students are taking, from learning the Python code there, and they've been pretty successful. So it's our pilot year for doing that, but they are earning that Python certification. So it's pretty exciting.
So Bobbi, just coming back, if there's teachers out there listening, where did you get the money to buy? Because we know money is really, budgets have been cut. It's really, really tough. Is it through grants? Is it through the school? Is it through fundraising? Can we think about a little bit creative? Because obviously it's tough out there at the moment. And I have teachers like, we want this, but how can we purchase this?
Yeah, so it is definitely all of those things. And I advocate all the time for computer science and just getting tools in the hands of kids. But so grants, definitely, we have some creative teaching grants that I have applied for. We had a state STEM grant that I got some money for some of the kids. I actually reached out to, we have actually a local Amazon smart warehouse, and they actually donated some money for the smart warehouse mats for the teachers, which was exciting. And we're going to be scheduling a field trip for the kids. After they do that mat, we'll be going out there so they can actually see how all of the AI and the robotic systems work at that Amazon warehouse. So that's going to be really cool. Some Title I funding that came in, some computer science state funded RFAs for teacher training and certification. I used that as well. I prepared a presentation that we took to what we call strategic initiatives, which is our superintendent, staff, and cabinet to listen to and to see the impact. And then being able to pull some data to show that our state university systems and then our local state colleges have career pathways in computer science, artificial intelligence, data science, all of those things, and to show that we're preparing kids now for pathways that would lead to high wage, high demand career choices and options. So I think getting some of that data and just being able to present that to all the different ways that you possibly could get any funding is helpful. And most people, as long as you